From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
And welcome to it. Good morning. Here we go, kicking off another brand new day from the foxhole of freedom, fighting for you and putting America first every single day. That's what we do here. Three big things this hour. Number one, spring break has turned into yet another ugly display of out-of-control kids, shootings, violence, and more. And many cities say they are done with it forever. Number two, the facts about China getting into voter databases in numerous states is now coming out thanks to John Solomon, his amazing team at Just the News. More on that critical story today as they've released even more this morning. And number three, the former director of the U.S. Counterterrorism Center, Joe Kent, has resigned. You probably heard that, saying he doesn't want to be part of the war against Iran. He claims that he didn't perceive an imminent threat from Iran, and he thinks that the strike was a result of Israeli pressure. And I've got some thoughts on that. Number one, every single Republican and a couple Democrats who have been briefed on this conflict have agreed that Iran is and has been for the last several decades a direct threat to the United States. The only people who seem to disagree are the ones who are trying to disrupt Donald Trump and his party's chances in the midterm elections. They're going on TV and oddly using the same exact phrasing that Joe Kent used. And even television hosts have enough knowledge to correct them. For example,
are you saying, though, that Iran should have just been allowed to continue enriching uranium? I mean, through their actions and even their statements in this negotiation, they were not going to give that up.
Absolutely not. They should not be nuclear. But we had the JCPOA that had their enrichment down to about 3.6%. We could have had, through Oman, tougher sanctions and negotiation. The Oman
but even
mediators
Democrats
were
acknowledged
saying
that was just putting off the eventuality of them getting a weapon, not blocking it entirely. I mean, Democrats have accepted that.
Well, putting off for 15 years. That's what the JCPOA would have done. And then you could have had tougher negotiation in terms of making sure they didn't have missiles. But there was no imminent threat. Now there's a threat to the United States. We've created a threat. There were no ICBMs that Iran could launch here.
I believe they said they had the material to make 11 bombs.
Now, as a rule, I don't typically trust the word of someone who uses the same language as far-left Congressman Ro Khanna. Just a rule of thumb I go by. Number two, Kent, that is, claims the decision to strike Iran was the result of pressure from Israel. But here's the thing. Obviously, Israel thinks it's a good idea to strike Iran. I don't disagree with that assessment. Israel has one of the greatest intelligence operations in the world, if not the very best. They frequently share information that protects our interests in the Middle East and globally, too. I have no reason to believe that sharing that kind of intel amounts to pressure that would force our president's hand to do something he would not otherwise do. When does Donald Trump do something he doesn't want to? And the reason I don't believe that is because our leaders have always believed the same thing about Iran. When Trump was just 34 years old, all the way back in 1980, he felt that the United States needed to be a lot tougher on Iran. And he predicted that if we were not, things would get a lot worse. Let's go back in the time machine.
Well, respect can lead to other things. When you get the respect of the other countries, then the other countries tend to do a little bit as you do, and you can create the right attitudes. The Iranian situation is a case in point. That they hold our hostages is just absolutely and totally ridiculous. That this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. And I don't think they'd do it with other countries. I honestly don't think they'd do it with other countries.
Obviously, you're advocating that we should have gone in there with troops, et cetera, and brought our boys out.
I absolutely feel that, yes. I don't think there's any question, and there's no question in my mind. It's a sad situation, Rona, but it's a situation which ultimately is going to get much worse. That little sparkle of war, that little sparkle is going to lead, in my opinion, to a much greater conflict, and I think that's very unfortunate. And I think a lot of it has to do with this country and the fact that this country is not more involved in terms of setting policy.
34 years old. He wasn't being pressured by any foreign countries then, certainly Israel. He just understood the way the world worked, and he understood respect. His entire life was focused on making good deals, and he knew that we were setting ourselves up for a bad deal by going soft on Iran all the way back in 1980. He said the same thing when he criticized Obama's deal with Iran, and this was his promise in 2016 before winning the presidency. Listen.
You know, we're not dealing with stupid people. You know, it used to be we would have a military. You'd have uniforms here, uniforms there. The one with the most uniforms standing wins the war, right? This is a little different now. Now you're talking about sneaky, dirty, underhanded people that want to kill our civilians. They want to go after our civilians. They want to kill not only our civilians, all over the world. And it's going to be stopped. It's going to be stopped. Somebody criticized me the other day because they asked me what I do, and I said, I'm going to bomb the shit out of them. It's true. I don't care. I don't care. They've got to be stopped.
I've said it before, and I will say it again. Trump has always been consistent on his position that Iran poses a threat to this country. And as I pointed out before, many Democrats have agreed with him. Many. They're just mad that he actually did something about it. And it's not just Trump who has been consistent on this issue. Our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has done a phenomenal job carrying out the wishes of the American people, and the president has said the same thing. He opposed Obama's deal with Iran in 2015 and went on the record predicting exactly what would happen if the deal went through. This is incredible. This is what he said.
On this matter, I think everything that needs to be said about the details of this deal have already been said. I do want to be recorded for history's purposes before I know what is going to happen in regards to this if it goes through. Iran will immediately use the money that it's receiving in sanctions relief to begin to build up its conventional capabilities. It will establish the most dominant military power in the region outside of the United States, and it will raise the price of us operating in the region. They're going to build anti-access capabilities, rockets capable of destroying our aircraft carriers and ships, continue to build these swift boats that are able to come on us, these fast boats that are able to swarm our naval assets. And they'll make it harder and harder for U.S. troops to be in the region. They'll also work with other terrorist groups in the region to target American servicemen and women. And they may or may not deny that they're involved, but they will target us and raise the price of our presence in the Middle East until they hope to completely pull us out of that region. They'll also continue to build long-range missiles, missiles capable of reaching the United States. Those are not affected by this deal, and they'll continue to build them as they've been doing. And then at some point in the near future, when the time is right, they will build a nuclear weapon. And they will do so because at that
And they will build a nuclear weapon after building up their conventional forces. That was 11 years ago. But it seems he was just as wise as he is today and just as principled, because he understood the threat that Iran posed. He didn't want to back down. He wanted it on the record. He didn't need to have Israeli intelligence or make that assessment. He just believed the Ayatollah when he said that he wanted death to America. We'll get to that. So Marco Rubio, 11 years ago. Donald Trump in 1980. The positions have been consistent. They weren't forced. They were considered. More on this after the break. Welcome to it. On a Wednesday, this is the Steve Gruber Show.
Want to make moves in your
All right. The Ayatollah, death to America. Death to America. Death to Israel. And death to anybody who doesn't believe in their points of view. Let's pick up where we left off. Listen to this.
And never in the history of the world has such a regime ever possessed weapons so capable of destruction. Iran is led by a supreme leader who is a radical Shia cleric with an apocalyptic vision of the future. He is not a traditional geopolitical actor who makes decisions on the basis of borders or simply history or because of ambitions. He has an religious apocalyptic vision of the future, one that calls for triggering a conflict between the non-Muslim world and the Muslim world, one that he feels especially obligated to trigger. And he's going to possess nuclear weapons. This is the world that we are on the verge of leaving our children to inherit. And perhaps we ourselves will have to share in it. And so I want to be recorded for history's purposes, if nothing else, to say that those of us who opposed this deal understood where it would lead. And we are making a terrible mistake. And I fear that a passage of this deal will make it even harder for us to prevent it.
Yeah. Rubio ended his comments by expressing his hope that one day, when America had different leaders, he hoped that we would change course and actually deal with this threat for what it is and what it was. That's what he's doing today, hand in hand with the administration that's making it possible. And let's get to number 3. Joe Kent claims there was no imminent threat from Iran, but let's look at the facts on the ground in recent years. Iran hasn't just talked tough, they've acted on it. Since 2023, their Houthi proxies in Yemen have launched dozens of missile and drone attacks on U.S. Navy ships and commercial vessels in the Red Sea, directly endangering American sailors and global trade. Hezbollah, another key Iranian proxy, has fired thousands of rockets into Israel while coordinating with Tehran to threaten U.S. forces across the region. On our own soil, Iranian agents have been caught in multiple foiled assassination plots, most recently in 2024 and 2025, including a convicted operative tied to the IRGC plotting to kill U.S. politicians and even targeting President Trump himself. And don't forget the nuclear side. IAEA reports through 2025 showed Iran stockpiling over 400 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60%, just a short step from weapons grade. Enough material if further enriched for multiple bombs, maybe a dozen. These aren't hypotheticals, they're documented escalations that put American lives and interests directly in the crosshairs. Now contrast that with our own intelligence community, not Israel, not some lobby. They've said publicly over the last 18 months, the DNI's annual threat assessments and CENTCOM briefings have repeatedly labeled Iran as the most active state sponsor of terrorism, funding proxies that kill U.S. troops and plotting attacks here in our homeland. U.S. officials from across administrations have called out Iran's role in arming militias, disrupting shipping lanes, and pursuing nuclear breakout capabilities. This isn't fringe opinion, it's the consensus view from the people reading the raw intel every day. Kent's resignation makes him the clear outlier here. Of the last 20 or key leaders in counterterrorism roles before him, 19 consistently testified or briefed that Iran posed the #1 state-level terrorist threat to the United States, this country, through proxies, direct plots, and nuclear ambitions. So when Kent says he saw no imminent threat, he wasn't looking at the same file the rest of the national security apparatus has been looking at for decades. I'm just setting the record straight here. Because someone has to, otherwise, the Democrats will win another major media war, selling a lie to the American people about what's going on and rewriting history as they see fit to control the power in this country. Being tough on Iran is an investment in America's future. And in the same 1980s interview, by the way, Donald Trump says being successful as an adult means sometimes you have to do the hard things, even when it doesn't make you the most popular person in the room. I think he's carrying that same mentality into the conflict right now. He's thinking about the future. And he wants a future without the threat of a nuclear Islamic regime. Listen.
Frankly, as somebody said, they could leave today and it would take 10 years to rebuild the damage that's been done. But I think we have to make it a little bit more permanent because no other president has to go through this, and we shouldn't have any other president having to go through this kind of a thing. And if they didn't want to do it, if for some reason they didn't want to do it, we'd have the same problem. We don't ever want to have that problem again, not with lunatics. We can't have lunatics controlling nuclear weaponry. So I just want to thank everybody.
Now, he has promised since day one of this conflict that neutralizing this threat will not be a forever war. He reiterated that intention to the press yesterday during a sit-down with Ireland's leader. Here's a bit.
We're not ready to leave yet, but we'll be leaving in the near future. We'll be leaving in pretty much the very near future. But right now, they've been decimated from every standpoint. And again, we've had great support from countries in the Middle East, great support. But we've had no support from, essentially, no support from NATO.
Now, I pray that he's right. When you have the most powerful military in the world, the odds of ending a war when you want are higher. That's a good thing. One that I credit President Trump with is he strengthened our military significantly since taking office. So let the record stand. I still support President Trump at this time because the facts do too. And for those that want to undermine the effort of cheap political points, shame on them. Shame on them, and that's the monologue. Many of you have struggled to lose weight. You lose it, you gain it back. What if I told you it's not your fault? It's not point shakes or living at the gym. If it was willpower, you'd already be done. What if I told you your metabolism isn't broken, it's just turned off? You can find out more. Go to gruberhealth.com. Book a free consultation with my friends there. I've worked with them since 2018. See if it's a good fit. It's all natural. Eat real food. No exercise required. Turn your metabolism on naturally. Learn the strategies to keep the weight off like I've done since 2018. Again, go to gruberhealth.com. Book a free consultation. You're going to be glad you did. And when you do, send me an email. Tell me how it worked for you. I get nice emails all the time. My Pure Health. gruberhealth.com. Promo code Gruber. Save some money. Get on board. Free consultation. All right, I'll take a break and be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Wednesday. All right, new headline from Just the News. John Solomon digging deeper into the Chinese intrusion into America's voter databases. This is a very serious thing. It's all starting to tumble out now. John Ratcliffe and Tulsi Gabbard have documents that need to be released now to show the true extent of Chinese interference in our elections. It could include creating fake voters altogether and using those fake voters by creating driver's licenses to create bogus mail-in ballots. Folks, I've always believed that these mail-in ballots, massive mail-in ballots, were the root of the problem. Still do. The machines may have done some things here and there. Maybe they did. My focus has always been on mass mail-in ballots that are always ripe for fraud. Here's the headline from Just the News released just moments ago. U.S. Intel hid Chinese 2020 election meddling from Trump because they opposed his policies. One of the people that was in charge of it referred to Donald Trump as the vulgarian in the Oval Office. Yep. China analysts appeared hesitant to assess Chinese actions as undue influence and interference. These analysts appeared reluctant to have their analysis on China brought forward because they tended to disagree with the administration's policies, saying, in effect, I don't want our intelligence used to support these policies. They put us at risk because they didn't like Donald Trump. Let me give you one more here. from one of the key people quoted in this article. I don't want my intelligence going to the White House where it will be used by that vulgarian in the Oval Office to support policies against China with which I personally disagree. So China came in, meddled in our elections, maybe committed fraud. And the folks that are supposed to protect us from that didn't give the information to the White House or to others because they didn't like Donald Trump. What an abdication of responsibility. What an abdication of you doing your job and protecting this country. These folks that wrote such things and said such things should be charged criminally for allowing China to commit fraud in our elections. Go to justthenews.com with John Solomon and his team. It's an 18-page article. I can only summarize, but I'll do more in the next hour. I'll take a break and be right back. This is The Steve Gruber Show. All right, this part of the program brought to you by PureClean's Veterans Initiative, PuroVet program, empowering veterans through franchise ownership and a $210 billion restoration industry. If you're a veteran or know somebody who is, this is the chance to get to the front of the line, get your own business, get set up for success. 855-PuroVet or purovet.com. All right, getting back into it now. It's going to be a busy day here, as they all are. My next guest, Doron Kempel, highly decorated former commander of the IDF's elite Sayeret Matt Call, Special Operations Unit. Hope I got that right. With extensive experience in high-risk missions and strategic security operations. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me, Steve. Good morning.
Good morning, Doron. Look, as we were just talking about at length, Joe Kent resigned. But his assessment is contrary to 19 previous people in that very position. And Iran's threat, not just to the Middle East, but to the United States, as demonstrated over 47 years. How do you take the resignation? What's your take?
Thank you. First of all, in order to contextualize my comments for your audience, I am a U.S. citizen speaking to you from Miami. Secondly, with regard to Joe Kent, I don't want to take shots at a brother in arms, which he is, former military special operations. But let me offer my perspective. In strategy, we cannot be naive. We need to be objective. We need to be empathetic to the other side. And we need to look at the big picture. The big picture is very clear. Iran is working for the Russian-Chinese bloc. The Russian-Chinese bloc is arming and sponsoring Iran. And the reason that they do that is because Iran serves as a kinetic pressure point on the West and on us, the United States. It does that by activating terrorist organizations around the world, building a ballistic missile program that eventually, if they achieve what they want, is also going to have nuclear capability, and then they have impunity. That is very clear. You do not need to read top secret intel reports in order to understand that. So anybody who doesn't connect the dots probably doesn't do it because he's naive or because he has other political interests.
Yeah. All right. So give me your assessment of where we are today with your background, your information. This is going to drag on much longer than a couple of weeks. Of course, we knew that. Let's be honest. We all knew that from the beginning. You can hit 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 targets inside Iran. Overnight, they're targeting missile and drone batteries along the coast. They're near the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of work still to be done. And other nations are refusing. Other nations that would be benefited by protecting oil tankers are refusing to do so. It's kind of remarkable to me. Where are we today in this ongoing dispute, in this ongoing military action?
Thank you. So let's start with the last point that you've made. All these other countries are benefactors of this effort, but it suits them with whatever their population is structured like today to have the United States do the hard work. So that's something that we need to take care of separately. But in terms of the analysis of where we are, let's start with the aims of the war. There could be two aims. The minimal aim is to postpone this cancer by about 5 years. And that means eradicate all the military infrastructure, all the ballistic missiles infrastructure, all the nuclear facilities. That's going to set Iran about 5 years back. But the Russians, the Chinese are going to reconstitute them. That's the minimal mission. And it's well on its way, and it's unstoppable. With the force that we, the United States, has there, we're going to get after all these military targets, and we're going to destroy them. However, the maximal mission is regime change. What that means is that we get the Iranian people to choose democracy over tyranny. And instead of playing, metaphorically, for the Russians and the Chinese, they support the West. In order to do that, what you need to do is you need to eliminate the first, second, and third tiers of the regime and the IRGC, and that's happening, right? We keep on hearing about some of their leaders being eliminated. At some point in time, that nucleus, the IRGC and the besieged militia below that, is going to a point where they will not want to fight anymore, and that will allow for the people of Iran to rise. Now, in my perspective, they're going to rise with the support of a friendly general or friendly generals, but these people are not going to get the go until the military goals have been achieved, and there's an assessment of the CIA and the Mossad that this is time for the uprising. If that is accomplished, then we turn them from Russia to the United States. If that doesn't work, and we'll need another 2 weeks in order to understand how that is going, then there's strategy number 2 and strategy number 3 that are less appetizing. One of them is to have US forces, Israeli forces on the ground for 3 to 6 months, helping the uprising. In other words, there's not going to be occupation of years. They're going to go in for 3 or 6 months, help the uprising, and then move out. But that is heavy-duty stuff and a big decision.
It would be wildly unpopular here. I can assure you of that. Wildly unpopular here. The war remains kind of a, collectively. I saw the CNN numbers yesterday. Only 45% of Americans are even paying close attention to what's happening around. Less than half. But if we put boots on the ground, if we go into something else altogether, then that will be a big sea change, especially in an election year. So that's. And unfortunately, in America, we have to consider the political fallout, although in this case, Donald Trump says he has to do the right thing. So boots on the ground, bad. But how else would you get the nuclear stockpile, the 400 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium or whatever it is they have? Because we don't honestly know, do we? But how do you get it?
Let's assume that you have the intel and you know where it mostly is. This is a very complicated mission. You need to probably land there with special forces, with Marines in order to cover the area around. You basically need to conquer that area. You need to eliminate whatever military they probably have there. And then you need to take all of that out. So this is a very complicated mission. It's better if we accomplish strategy number one, and then whoever is managing Iran just allows our trucks to take it away. The third strategy, Steve, to remember that is also unlikely is not to only bomb the military infrastructure, but also to bomb civilian infrastructure. And then Iran becomes like Iraq, but without occupation. In other words, they don't have the economical capability to develop these arms again. Unlikely, but that's another possible strategy.
Yeah. Reminds me of a movie I saw, Charlie Wilson's War. Maybe you give the civilians small arms and let them do their thing. I bet the people of Iran wish they had the Second Amendment of the United States here today. I'll tell you that, Doron, because if they did, they'd have an ability to fight back. But when the IRGC, which is less than 10% of the population, controls all of the weapons, makes it much more difficult. We're going to leave it there for today. You come back anytime because this continues to evolve. It continues to go forward. It's going to go on for a number of weeks at least, I believe. Last word to you.
Well, we need to give credit to President Trump. Typically, politicians don't take unpopular steps when the credit is received by the next administration, which is what's going to happen here. So President Trump and this administration is taking courageous steps in order to protect all of us, but the fruits of that labor are going to be in the decades to come.
Doron Kempel, thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me.
That's your latest update on what's happening in Iran. A lot of different tea leaves and breadcrumbs to follow. We try to give it all to you so you can decide for yourself. All right? Just the facts. Just the facts, ma'am. When we come back, the facts about mRNA. Would you ever go through that again? Peter McCullough after the break. I asked you a question before the break. It's an important thing to consider. Here's why. The idea to stop recommending mRNA, right? That's apparently running out of steam. Does this mean that mRNA injections are going to be recommended again? I find that remarkable and concerning. I do, because look, I would never go through that again. Would any of you? Jump in any of the chat rooms right now. Tell me your thoughts, or send me an email, stevegruber.com. Send me an email. Did you ever take it? Would you ever again? Did you never get it in the first place? These are important questions. It's not traditional. Look, we ended up getting the first 2 shots. I got very sick from the injection. I got vertigo so badly I couldn't sit up straight on my couch. I wouldn't take that thing for any reason. And I was told it was perfectly safe by a very conservative Christian doctor friend of mine. And he was working with the best information he had. He wasn't nefarious. He wasn't working for the government. He wasn't pushing some idea. He thought he was getting the truth. He later conceded that he was not. He later conceded that he, too, was a victim of false information. Right? So here we are with it. I mean, you can still go down where they're giving out the flu shot. The flu shot this year, by the way, the least effective it's been in years. Another wasted injection for what? I don't get flu shots either, by the way. I don't get any shots unless it's something I understand clearly. But I don't get flu shots. I don't get mRNA shots. I don't do any of this. And you might have seen this yesterday. A federal judge intervened and knocked back Secretary Kennedy's reduction of the child vaccination schedule, saying you can't do that. Now, this judge has been rebuked by the Supreme Court a number of times, but he's still out there frolicking in the legal world, creating problems. Did you realize the childhood vaccination schedule came up to 79 different injections? 79. Where on earth did they get all those vaccinations, and for what? And how much money to be made off them? All of those 79 injections, man, that's a big pile of cheese. That's a lot of money, isn't it? It sure is. And so the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Bobby Kennedy, said, well, we'll bring it back. I think it was about to 11. Here's 11 base vaccines. You know, using actual vaccination technology, dead viruses, you know, a portion of the viral structure. All of that. But the fact of the matter is, this judge intervened, got involved with it, and there it is. But there's no question, as we sit here today, that the Trump administration has been a vast improvement over the previous administration when it comes to reforming our broken healthcare system. Problem is, progress isn't always a straight line. There have been disappointments for medical freedom advocates, and this one that's brewing. This battle over the mRNA vaccine, I use that term very loosely, technology. According to several reports, it appears the efforts to end recommending mRNA is coming to an end. And why do you think that is? Why is it important for our healthcare bureaucracies to stop recommending these vaccines? Because, number one, they didn't work. Number two, they proved to be very dangerous to some people. Vaccine injuries became rampant in some places. Heart issues, premature death, some people say turbo cancer. With me is Dr. Peter McCullough. He'll only be here for a moment, but I have one important question, Doctor. Thank you for joining me from the Wellness Company. Mm-hmm. Having gone through all of this, is there anyone, I just want to be crystal clear about this, is there any reason anyone should take the mRNA injection at this time? Anyone?
No, Steve. There now are 4,300 peer-reviewed manuscripts demonstrating, harms, injuries, disabilities, and deaths with the COVID vaccine. Sadly, they did not save any lives. What did save lives was natural immunity, early treatment protocols, people at home at high risk, and then the virus mutating to a very mild form. So I think the vaccine program can be fully retired, and the whole country and the world would cheer if the vaccines were withdrawn. Here's
another question that it occurs to me a lot, Doctor. Has our medical industry, has the healthcare industry been set up completely wrong? What I mean by that is the medical industry focuses on treating sick people. They never focus on keeping people healthy in the first place. There's no money in it, I guess. I mean, we do this backwards, don't we?
Yeah, it's hard though, Steve. I tell you, every doctor's office is busy and people come knee deep into problems. You're right. We do need an entire wellness industry. That's what we're trying to do with the wellness company, is to keep people well so they don't end up in doctors' offices. But, the doctors right now, it's a problem-based field. That is, patients present with problems, we try to solve them in conventional medicine. Wellness company and the whole field of naturopathic holistic medicine, that's trying to keep people well, and it needs to be fostered and developed.
Absolutely true. And I think we're on the right path. We've inverted the food pyramid. Good step forward by Secretary Kennedy, who gets a lot of grief from some people, but he's on the right track there. We need to keep people healthy. Doctor, and I appreciate you being here as always, my friend.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. You can find out more. The Wellness Company has all sorts of resources for you. They've got emergency medical kits that you can put on your shelf at home that has great medicines in case of emergency if you get cut off because of up here, a blizzard, farther south, a hurricane, whatever it might be. Maybe the storage is closed. Maybe you're just sick and can't get out. So emergency medical kits. Also, you've got the long COVID anti-protein, so you can get after this COVID. You can get rid of that out of your system. All these great products at the Wellness Company. TWC.health/Gruber. TWC.health/Gruber. You go there today and order. Use the promo code Gruber. You're going to save 10%. The spike protein formula, the best there is. Get that out of your system. If you took the injection, or if you got COVID at any time and you just feel like it's lingered, that spike protein formula is the gold standard. Again, TWC.health/Gruber. Promo code Gruber, save some money. I'll be back after this. All right, let's jump right into it now. Forgotten America is the podcast I have launched here a few weeks ago. This week, a lot of fun, actually. We cover a whole host of different topics. This week, it's the common sense cowboy, Patrick Doranson. He is a fascinating guy with a smoking beard. Here it is.
So the cowboys are going in and they're roping them and dragging them to the fire. Well, this one kind of righted itself and stepped out of the loop and started coming at me like, as my mother used to say, hell bent for election. And it ran right over me. Now, why is it running behind me, over me? Because its mother's on the other side being held back by guys on horseback.
Yeah.
Right up at me, and as I'm going over, I roll over and I look behind me, and coming at me is a freight train of a mad mama cow.
Oh, no.
You're caught in the middle.
I'm thinking, well, it's been a good life. Maybe I'm going to see my mother quicker than I thought.
That's a good conversation. The common sense cowboy, Patrick Doranson. We had a lot of good laughs and a great conversation. He brought common sense to the table. All you have to do to listen to all these podcasts, Kyle Rittenhouse, Tiffany Ciance, Peter Schweitzer, Patrick Doranson, all of them now. Go to YouTube, become a subscriber. It's free. It's the best thing you're going to do all day. Become a subscriber for free. Hit that like button and away you go, right? And you're going to enjoy that. Forgotten America on YouTube, soon to be everywhere, but that's where it is now. A new year, by the way, doesn't mean extreme diets or complicated routines. It needs consistency, longevity, wellness. Helps you build that habit with one clean, all-in-one nutritional shake that supports strength, focus, digestion, and your immune health. Smart nutrition you can actually stick with. Start strong today. We do it in this household every day. Visit longevitywellness.co. Use the promo code Gruber for a special listener discount. That's Gruber at longevitywellness.co. You'll be glad. If you got kids in sports, great for them. An older American who needs to make sure they're getting enough nutrition, good for them. People that are on any weight loss program, you don't want to lose muscle and bone, there it is, longevitywellness.co. Promo code Gruber. We're going to talk about the China infiltration into our elections in the next hour here on the Steve Gruber Show.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome back as we continue fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Putting America first, as we do every single day, digging deeper into the big stories to give you analysis and information you're not going to get anywhere else. Three big things this hour. Number one, oil prices are holding steady, not so much for gas. It continues to rise despite the fact that WTI has been steady in the mid-$90 range for several days now. Again, they're cashing in at your expense. Number two, speaking of energy, the state of New York putting many of its Green New Deal laws on hold because the deadlines can never be met and because it drives prices to the roof for everyone. And number three, the Save America Act. It's being discussed on the Senate floor. Looks like there may actually be hope for this common sense legislation after Mitch McConnell and other holdouts voted to move the legislation forward, at least for a long-winded filibuster discussion. Will they vote for it in the end? That doesn't guarantee it, but it certainly means it is getting closer to happening. And if Mitch McConnell doesn't vote for this from deep, dark red Kentucky, that will be his legacy. That will be his legacy. Lots of comments from the floor. Here's Ted Cruz destroying Democrats on the Save America Act from yesterday. Listen in.
The American people do not support voter ID. Mr. President, our Democrat colleagues are fond of bellowing into the TV cameras that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow. They tell us with mock earnestness. Now, I will admit, our Democrat colleagues should be experts in Jim Crow because it was Democrat politicians who passed the Jim Crow laws. It was Democrat politicians who founded the Ku Klux Klan. It was Democrat politicians for decade after decade who enforced discrimination, separate but equal, poll taxes, and a host of other laws designed to prevent African Americans from voting. But do you know who has rejected their disingenuous claim that photo ID to vote is Jim Crow? The Supreme Court of the United States. Supreme Court of the United States, the state of Indiana, passed photo ID law requiring that you show a photo ID to vote. And a group of left-wing plaintiffs filed litigation challenging that.
Yeah. Senator Ted Cruz among many taking to the floor. Cruz, by the way, says make him talk all night. Make this talking filibuster go on all night. And with the revelations coming from John Solomon at Just the News that China infiltrated our voter databases, creating fake personas that would then get ballots mailed to them that could be returned without having any idea where they came from or who actually cast the ballot. This is more important now than it has ever been. Senator Chuck Grassley of Iowa says the Save America Act will secure elections and says it is critical. I agree with the senator. Listen.
The Save America Act would give voters peace of mind that federal elections are conducted fair and square. It would give voters peace of mind that their vote isn't diluted by people not eligible to vote. I'm co-sponsor of SAVE Act and the Save America Act. I support free, transparent, and accurate elections. Every American deserves absolute confidence. There's no funny business distorting election outcomes.
Yeah, no funny business. Fair and square. I mean, he is almost 90. His terminology reflects that. All right. On the House side, Anna Paulina Luna says there's no reason, none. The Save America Act is being stopped except for political power. And she says she is a living example of voter integrity. Listen to this.
This is a very bare minimum deliverable that is bipartisan. The American people want voter ID, and so it's unacceptable that we can't deliver on that. And so I'm going to be a royal pain in the butt to the Senate until it happens.
And it wouldn't just be a driver's license, right? Because a driver's license have been issued in a number of states to illegals.
To illegals.
Yeah.
Correct. So it has to be proof of citizenship. And it's also crazy, Maria, because when you actually hear the debate from Democrats on this, they're saying that, minority women and, minorities as a whole and veterans can't get these proof of identification in order to vote. Look, I check all three boxes. I have had no issues getting, proof of citizenship to vote. And so we're definitely excited to take on these arguments.
Well, I mean, one viewer wrote to me yesterday. She said, Maria, people need to understand.
All right. It is insulting to married women. It is insulting to black voters. It is insulting to Hispanic voters or anybody else. You just can't figure out how to vote. You're not smart enough. Really? Really? Absolutely insane. And so let me give you a Democrat side of it. Ted Lieu of California says a lot about the SAVE Act. So it's a blizzard of lies. It's a blizzard of lies, but I'll give you an example. Here it is.
I'm opposed to stupid voter ID requirements. And the SAVE Act is insane because you know what it does? It's going to say for most people your driver's license doesn't count for you to be able to vote. So how do you prove you're a citizen? Well, hope you have a passport. If you don't have a passport, you got to go try to find your birth certificate. But if your birth certificate's name doesn't match because you're a woman and married and name change, guess what? Doesn't count. So all these people, women and people who don't have passports, are going to get disenfranchised immediately.
Actually, your driver's license does count, Congressman, but I realize the only way you can convince people who don't do their research is to lie to them over and over and over. We get it. We get it. You don't want voter ID because you want people who have no right to vote to cast ballots for you. We got it. We understand. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity and cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing? House alarms and doorbell cameras, none of that works. They don't want your stuff. They don't want your TV. They don't want your jewelry. They want your equity, the money you've built up by paying your mortgage all these years. If your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer the title of your home into their name using a one-page document they file at the county and then take out loans against it or even sell it behind your back. The scariest part, you won't find out until collection or even foreclosure notices start hitting your mailbox. But by then, look, the damage has been done. The best way to protect your equity is with triple lock protection from my friends at Home Title Lock. Triple lock protection is 24/7 monitoring, alerts of any changes, and God forbid, if the worst happens, restoration services at no out-of-pocket cost to you. You can check in your home's title today and make sure you're not a victim. Use the promo code Gruber at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You'll get a 14-day free trial of the $1 million triple lock protection plan. It'll monitor your title, make sure if anything happens, they'll notify you, and they'll spend up to $1 million to restore your title if something goes sideways. All right? Pretty cool, really. Go to HometitleLock.com. Promo code is Gruber. Make sure your title's protected. Don't let these thieves take advantage of you in this age of interconnectivity. I'll take a break and be back. This is The Steve Gruber Show. Hold on. All right, back to it now. My next guest, Stephen Moore, founder of the Ukraine Freedom Project, joining me now. And, you know, we were in the break talking about this China deal. And I want to touch on this because we were talking about there's a global war going on. We talk about Iran. We talk about Gaza, different things. But China has been at war with America for decades. We just don't realize it over here, Steve, because America looks at war as binary. Either we're in World War II or we're not. Either we're in Vietnam or we're not, whatever it might be, right? We're in a war or we're not. China doesn't look at it that way. They're infiltrating us every day, stealing our intellectual property, potentially creating ballots. And you laugh at that. But in Michigan, in November 2020, 10,000 fake mail-in ballots were found in Muskegon by the Michigan State Police and investigated. That same time, there was a semi-load of fake driver's licenses stopped and confiscated in the city of Chicago. At the same time, a postal worker said he drove an 18-wheeler full of mail-in ballots from the state of New York into Pennsylvania on Election Day. These are not unrelated issues. China has been, it's never been Russia. It has never, maybe they fool around here and there, but China is sophisticated in what they did. They penetrated voter databases. Well, this is the same voter databases that Democrats are fighting the DOJ not to release from the different states to look at what happened. It's remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, all the Islamic extremist groups and the drug cartels in South America are all working together for our demise. And, you know, what we've got right now is shooting wars in Europe and the Middle East, and which is what Americans are accustomed to when they think of war. But, you know, you look at some of the stuff that Russia's doing. You know, the Havana syndrome has come up again, where the Russians have disabled hundreds of U.S. intelligence operatives using this directed energy weapon.
Yeah, energy weapons.
And right now in Iran, 7 U.S. servicemen have died as a result of Russians sending drones to Iran. Russians are sending about 15 cargo loads full of weapons, cargo planes full of weapons to Iran to kill U.S. service members.
But you make a point that I want to circle here. When the Ukraine war started, America sent equipment and different things were sent on a lot of money. But those same European nations won't help ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Remarkable. They want America to come fight the war in Eastern Europe, but they won't come assist their own economies. I mean, this oil isn't coming to America, most of it. It's going to the EU. It's going to China. It's going to India. What a remarkable bit of cowardice from the UK, from France, from Germany, and from Canada, I might add. Go ahead.
Yeah, listen, you know, they're not fighting the Iran war. They're not even fighting the Ukraine war right now. And so like yesterday, all the EU countries combined to buy enough Russian petroleum products to fund about 1,000 of these Shahed drones, these Iranian-Russian drones that have been sent into Ukraine. 57,000 of these things have been sent into the Ukraine to kill Ukrainian civilians. And they're funded by EU petroleum purchases. So, you know, I'd just like, you know, we're in a global war. I'd like to see the French, the Belgians, the Spanish, some of these other EU countries that are purchasing all this. Yeah, I'd like to see someone fight somewhere, because we're in a global war.
We certainly
It'd be nice to have
are.
some help.
It's military.
Yeah.
It is technological. It is... Well, it's a global war for the hearts and minds of the world because they're selling socialism in American classrooms as people think, well, socialism's better. I'm sorry. Throw away the Howard Zinn book, please, and read real history and understand the world. Man. You know, get rid of the garbage and the propaganda. Read actual history and you'll understand. Learn about the great leap
That stuff
forward.
is so Soviet, man. It's totally Soviet, you know? Yeah. Well, you know, I would like to go back to your last comment about the European countries. I will point out that Russia is sending weapons to Iran, and Ukraine is sending drones to counter those weapons. So Ukraine has developed this great drone industry, this great counter drone industry. They've had 57,000 of these Russian Iranian drones shot at them, and they figured out how to take them out, about 90% of them. Only about 10% of these drones get through. So we're not having that much success in the Middle East right now, taking down these drones. Yesterday, you might have seen it, the Iranians just said, we're going to take out this facility in the UAE. And, if you're a civilian, evacuate. And then the next day, they took it out. So, our capabilities are insufficient to even, take out this drone attack when we know it's coming. So the Ukrainians are sending the drone technology they developed, in part with our taxpayer money.
Now, you asked me before we came on in the break there where I am on this Iranian thing. Well, I stand with what we're doing currently. Because, as I told you, it was burned into my psyche, 1979, watching the hostages, watching the bodies being pulled out of Beirut in the rubble, not once but twice, and so on and so forth. But the concern becomes the same as millions of others. How long are we there? How long does this go on? How long until we can really affect change in Iran? And your thoughts are, how long are we going to be there, Steve?
Well, again, we are in a global war. China has said they want to go into Taiwan by 2027. And again, we got shooting wars in Europe and the Middle East. And this is not a quick, easy 30-minute sitcom fix. Things are going to get better before they're going to get worse before they get better. The unfortunate thing is Americans think it's their God-given right to scroll Instagram and watch Netflix. And sometimes you have to, again, Thomas Jefferson, the tree of liberty has to be refreshed occasionally with the blood of patriots. And it's been 80 years since we've had a major war. And, right now we're using NATO.
Too easy.
Yeah.
I think,
man.
Instagram, DoorDash, everything's instant, everything's free. They're filling out their brackets for March Madness. They don't care. In fact, CNN just said less than half of Americans care. I got to leave it there for today, but I want you to come back. We need a longer conversation because
love to hang out with you, man.
The problem is foundational. The people in America are far too soft, I believe, on too many points. I'm not wrong, am I?
Man.
No,
you are absolutely right. Yeah, everybody loves their scrolling Instagram.
You got it. Stephen
thanks,
Moore,
man.
nice talking to you, my friend. We'll talk again soon, and
Always
I'll be right
good.
back.
See ya.
All right. Forgotten America. Man, we're having a lot of fun with this. It's the new podcast Ivy and I launched a couple of months ago. You can find it on YouTube under Steve Gruber. Very easy thing to do. Become a subscriber because it's free. And you can learn something. Long conversations, fun conversation. This week is fun. Patrick Doranson is the common sense cowboy. And he's got the coolest mustache beard thing I've ever seen in my life. You got that going for you. Here's a preview.
People are so afraid to fail or make mistakes. And that is part of learning and growing and,
being human?
Just improving. And I love that. Sometimes we forget also that life doesn't have to be so serious that we can't just laugh at our mistakes. Hey, it happened. I can do better next time. Move on.
I like the point
and
that it's experience.
And you know something, Ivy? That to me is so basic. If you go back and look at periods of our country's history, when we've faced a lot of difficult times, like maybe the Great Depression. Will Rogers brought humor. And if you really go look, he poked fun at all of them. You know, he didn't care what letter they were wearing on their uniform. He thought they were all a bunch of crooks. So, you know, and Mark Twain was the same way.
He was right. They're all a bunch of crooks. Anyhow, it's a fun conversation with a guy who had been in corporate life for years, and he threw it all in, got himself a cowboy hat, and said, you know what? This is the next chapter of my life. Talk about the American dream being fulfilled. And you can check it all out. We have serious conversations. We have fun conversations. We have real conversations. Ivy and I, we'll talk to just about anybody. Anybody. Bring your perspective, and we'll talk for an hour, maybe a little bit more sometimes. Depends on what we're talking about. So a lot of great topics, and you can go check it out. There's a whole library now of these podcasts. Forgotten America, which will soon be distributed across the world, I'm told, by our friends at iHeart, so that's coming as well. It's free to subscribe. You've got nothing to lose. Besides, we're live there every day with this program, too. You can get in the chat room, have conversations with people, agree, disagree, but just be respectful. That's all I ask. Be respectful, all right? I'll take a break and be back. This is The Steve Gruber Show. I was just talking about the Forgotten America podcast. Coming up here in a week or two, we'll have Claire Abernathy in the conversation with us on the podcast there. She is a detransitioner. You know, these detransitioners are the dirty secret. They really are, of this whole transgender movement, whatever it is. And when people detransition, they're basically forgotten, ignored, pushed back into the shadows because they don't fit the narrative. My next guest, Chris Ullman, is the president of the Eagle Forum, and she is behind the Chloe Cole Act. Chloe Cole, one of the more well-known detransitioners. Chris, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure to be with you this morning.
I mean, I've talked to a number of detransitioners on this program, now on our podcast, and look, once they come out as detransitioning, they're labeled as homophobic, they're labeled as enemies, they are ruthlessly attacked on social media, in their inbox of their email, and it's remarkable. They are the dirty secret of the transgender movement, aren't they?
They are treated that way by the radical trans ideologues, but not by people like Eagle Forum, not by many in the conservative community who understand that these people are victims. They're victims of the radicals who told them that they could be happy if they cut off their healthy body parts, that somehow boys can become girls and girls can become boys. So yes, the radicals reject them. They throw them to the curb. But we on the conservative side and at Eagle Forum, we've been doing this since 2018, having them come to conferences, advocating for legislation to protect them and say, you are a victim, you were lied to, and you know what? You should sue those people who damaged you.
Here is one of the most incredible revelations, because it's a consistent story, okay? Whether they're on this program or on my podcast. People like Chloe Cole, people like Claire Abernathy, these other folks that have come forward and said, I was misled, I was lied to, like you said. And that lie was as short as 1 hour. Claire Abernathy said she had one meeting with a counselor or a therapist or whatever for 1 hour before they said, yeah, you need to be on hormones immediately. 1 hour to decide the future of a 14-year-old. I mean, that is criminal in my mind. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, and that is what this Chloe Cole Act will do. It will allow the victims and the parents to sue these therapists, these doctors, these hospitals who are ignoring the underlying painful conditions that so many of these young people suffer from and immediately medicalizing them, and not for a year or 2 years or 5 years, for the rest of their life. These young people will be forever medical patients if they're taking cross-sex hormones, if they, God forbid, have had healthy body tissue removed with serious complications. I mean, this is really outrageous. And these people need to be held responsible. And you know what we have found? That when you hit them where it hurts, which is where the money is, then they back off. I mean, we saw this with the Fox Varian case where she won $2 million in the state of New York. Immediately, the plastic surgeons came out and said, whoa, wait a minute, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. We didn't realize we were going to be held responsible for mutilating young children. But if that's the case, we're not into it anymore.
Yeah, exactly right. One lawsuit changes everything. At least it changed something. Now we have good news here, Chris, and that is the peak of this transgender, I guess I'll use the word movement, whatever you want to refer to it as, hysteria. It peaked in 2023. It's been on the decline ever since because people like Chloe Cole have gone public. People are getting more traction. Conservative organizations like your own are saying, wait, stop. You can't do this. You can't mutilate children. The countries in Europe have, for the most part, stopped all of this for anybody 18 or under, right? They've stopped it. And we're going to look back at this point in our history and say, what the hell were we doing? So the Chloe Cole Act, very important. But as I've seen traditionally, those on the left will vote against it. They're going to vote against it because they seem somehow that, as you put it, cutting off perfectly good body parts is somehow the smart and rational thing to do, which clearly it is not. Can this thing get through?
I think it can. And it's, the left sees this as a civil right, the right to mutilate children for profit, the right to ignore serious mental health issues and permanently harm children. But the good news is that a form of the Chloe Cole Act is going to hopefully be put into the Save America Act. So Senator Thune is offering an amendment that includes hopefully this right of action, this right of parents and victims to sue their doctors. So hopefully we can get that done. The president said that's a priority. It would also ban these procedures nationwide, which is vitally important. But we also have to go back and make the victims who are there, people like Chloe Cole, whole again. And that's what the importance of having this right to sue the doctors is for people who have already been mutilated. So if we can get it on the SAVE Act, if we can, make the Democrats swallow it on that, is 80% of Americans support this kind of thing, support protecting children and protecting our vote. Then we have a shot, but you know what it's going to involve?
Yeah, it might be higher than 80%.
Yeah, we need to involve every single. Absolutely. But every person needs to call their senators, whether we're Republican or Democrat, and say, vote for the SAVE Act, save our elections, and save our children, because this provision is going to be as well.
No, I agree with you on that. And they began the debate yesterday on the floor of the Senate. It's ongoing. Look, I don't understand how the only people in large numbers that oppose the SAVE Act and oppose protecting children from unnecessary mutilation are Democrats on Capitol Hill. They should come visit my state of Michigan. They should come visit you. They should come talk to people in real places across this country. Get out of the congressional bubble and go actually talk to people and find out what people really believe. These are 80-20 issues or greater. Having a voter ID is an 80-20 issue. Having children protected from these hospitals that would butcher them is a 90-10 issue, I believe. We need to get this done. I'll give you the last word.
Absolutely. And I will just say that it really is going to be a grassroots movement if we're going to get this passed. The senators need to hear from people. They need to hear from people Democrat senators in states like Michigan and Colorado and other places like that, and even California. Just stand up and be heard. And, we've done it before, and we can do it again. And if they hear from enough voters, they're going to be forced to swallow it. They'll hem and haw about it, but they'll be forced to swallow it, and we'll be better for it, the country.
We will be better for it. Our children will be better for it. We don't entertain depression and mental illness. And the other part of this is the amount of drugs pumped into these kids, antidepressants and this kind of psychoactive drug and that kind of stuff. Then, we need to chop off your body parts. Like Claire Abernathy told me, she was numb. She was a zombie when they led her down that path, right? Fortunately, COVID came and they didn't do the bottom surgery. They did the double mastectomy, but that's where it stopped, thankfully. Anyhow, really appreciate the work you're doing. Real quickly, your website so people can learn more.
EagleForum.org. Please come visit us and join in the fight.
EagleForum.org. Thank you, Chris.
All right. Thanks.
All right. I'll take a break and be back. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Wednesday. All right, let's dive right back into it. I spoke of this earlier, but I want to share this story with you because it's important. An Obama-appointed judge has ordered the release of an MS-13 gang member who has a history of rape, robbery, and attacking ICE agents. And this judge is ordering this person to be in the country illegally, a violent criminal. And this judge, who has previously been rebuked by the United States Supreme Court, is saying to put this person back on the streets. Yes. A federal judge ordering federal immigration authorities to release a gang member with multiple unlawful entries into the country, whose criminal history includes rape and robbery. Earlier this month, U.S. District Judge Susan Richard Nelson, an Obama appointee, ordered the release of Carlos Antonio Flores Miguel, an MS-13 gang member from El Salvador, from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE custody, according to the Department of Homeland Security. Releasing violent criminals is inexcusably reckless, said the Department of Homeland Security, and now this criminal will be able to perpetrate more crimes against innocent Americans. There is no justification to put a rapist on the streets of America who doesn't even belong here, who's come into the country at least 3 separate times illegally. And previously arrested in El Salvador, too. The Salvadoran needs to be thrown out of this country and find his home in CICOT. That is the prison in El Salvador. That's where he belongs. But the mentality on the left is different. Different than you and I. See, I actually believe criminals should be held accountable for the crimes they commit. Not so on the other side of the aisle, apparently. Democrats actually believe Somalians built this country. I can't make this up. They actually are arguing that Somalians built America. Listen to this.
The majority of Americans across the country, regardless of political party, know that immigrants from all over the world, Somalia, India, wherever they're from, Latin America, Africa, that immigrants have built this country and make this country what it is today.
Pramelia Jayapal, I think that's how you say it, says Somalians built America. Well, now you know. There's your new history book. There's your Somalia actually built America. People from Ireland and England and Germany, they had nothing to do with it. Somalians and others built the country, right? Speaking of Somalia, here's another take on it from Eric Schmidt, senator of Missouri, carpet bombing the fraudsters who are stealing money from you and me, the American taxpayer, every day. Here's what he said.
People to get your way. And it's not 2020 anymore. The American people are over it. So what you're going to find is we're going to prosecute, and it has nothing to do with race. We're going to prosecute because fraud was committed on a level that is so offensive to this country. Your words that don't mean anything aren't going to stop what's coming. And I want you to take that back to George Soros and all these ridiculous funders you have to try to muddle the issue. Because justice is coming. And by the way, if I have it my way, we will denaturalize all these fraudsters and send them home. Mr. Chairman, I'm out of time.
Yeah. Send them home. Denaturalize these people and kick them out. I agree. If you come to America, become a naturalized citizen, and then set up a criminal enterprise to defraud American taxpayers who work every day, sometimes 2 jobs or 3, to pay their taxes so you can steal it? No, absolutely not. There's the door. Let us show you to it. Absolutely not. Should we tolerate that? And you know, you hear a lot from the left about how unpopular Donald Trump is, but CNN just released numbers. The war in Iran is not of much interest to well over half of America. Those paying close attention in the 40% range, right? Others, not so much. And Democrats, they just seem to have lost their way, but not all of them. I come back to Bill Maher because he talks common sense from time to time. Here's an example.
Democrats really need to cut loose the celebrities. They're not helping. They don't strike people as normal because they're f***ing not. Democrats already have a problem with people thinking that they are not the common sense crowd. And then when they see, the Chapel Roans and the Billie Eilishes of the world who don't act like normal people, and then whatever they're saying just strikes everybody in America who's a normal person as, oh, God, here's more of this stuff where you can't relate to a real life. And, of course, there was comedy in there about it's so easy to, show celebrities acting crazy.
It is so easy. Billie Eilish, in her $15 or $20 million mansion, I apologize for living on stolen ground. Well, then, by God, give it to a local tribe. Why do you do that? Of course, that doesn't happen. It's all performative, virtue signaling, and completely pointless. We live on stolen ground. No, in fact, we don't. Most of it was bought and paid for. Were there bad episodes? Certainly. Were there things done by Andrew Jackson when he was president, the Trail of Tears? Yes, certainly. And by President Van Buren after him? Yes, certainly. But on balance, this is the greatest country ever created. Even Bill Maher can figure that out. And he can figure out that those in Hollywood are in some bizarre orbit where reality is not even considered. A concept they don't even understand. And so when you talk about transitioning, cutting off perfectly good body parts, that's an 80-20 or a 90-10 issue. When you talk about voter ID, that's supported by 80% of Americans, Republicans, Democrats, black voters, white voters, Hispanic voters, across the board. Wildly popular, except with people in Hollywood and their buddies in Congress. So when you look at the Republican Party and they say, well, they're really unpopular. Yeah, there's one thing they're more popular than. Democrats in Congress, who are really out to lunch, to say the least. All right, March Madness is upon us, and so is Brock Palmbush. He'll have sports after the break. All right, let's check it on sports now with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. Eugenio Suarez's RBI double in the top of the ninth inning gave Venezuela the lead, and they defeated the United States 3-2 in the finals of the World Baseball Classic last night in Miami's Lone Depot Park. Bryce Harper hit a two-run homer in the bottom of the eighth to tie the game at 2 to provide the Americans' only offense. It's Venezuela's first ever World Baseball Classic title. The NCAA men's basketball tournament began last night with a pair of first four games in Dayton, Ohio. In Game 1, Howard outlasted Maryland Baltimore County 86-83. And in Game 2, Texas squeaked by North Carolina State 68-66. The WNBA and its players have come to a verbal agreement on a new collective bargaining agreement early this morning in New York. The deal has to be ratified by the league's Board of Governors as well as the WNBA players themselves. In the NBA, there were 8 games. Winners included Detroit and Oklahoma City. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. All right, let's get down to it. Brock is with Arizona. I've got it right here. There's my bracket all filled out, all shiny and new. It'll be a bloody mess by the time we get to Saturday, I'm sure.
Usually is for a lot of people.
Yeah, there's never been a perfect bracket in the history of brackets that I'm aware of, right?
No. Nope.
People have come close.
They have.
But there's, and here's my problem looking at this deal. You never know who is that dark horse that's going to gallop into the Sweet 16 or the Grade 8 or whatever, right?
Exactly.
You never know.
What upset is going to happen that nobody expects.
Right. Which number one seed is going to fall?
First,
right. Right. I mean, does Texas Tech take out Michigan? Does Arizona lose somewhere? Right. I mean, can Wisconsin do to Arizona what they did to Michigan?
Does Duke get upset?
Yeah. I doubt. That's the one thing I don't see. Duke, they're so good.
Yeah.
So good. I don't know, but they can. Does Florida make it to the Final Four? I think that's a team ripe for upset.
Well, they're only the defending national champions.
Well, I get that. But they got to beat 2 Big Ten teams on their way in, right? They'll have to beat Nebraska and Illinois or Houston.
They might.
Yeah, I don't know. It's on the record there. You can see it, but you can't really see it. Anyhow, there's my pick. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'll just tell you on Monday how well I did or didn't do. Thank you, Brock, as always.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk more about the brackets come Monday, that's for sure. We'll take a break. Another big hour of the program. Straight ahead, this is The Steve Gruber Show.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, welcome back to it as we continue to fight for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day. Going deeper into the topics you care about most, giving you information you won't find anywhere else. Maybe you'll learn something along the way. We hope you do. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, despite the fact that oil has remained steady in the mid-$90 range for oil, it's not reflected at the gas pump. Prices continue to go up. We are getting gouged. Number two, a four-time deportee, an illegal alien sentenced for a fake ID scheme in Michigan. I'm not shocked, are you? And number three, I want to give you some follow-up here on that massive winter storm that lingered for a couple of days, basically from the center of the lower peninsula of Michigan all the way through the UP, through Wisconsin and so forth, right? The snow totals were remarkable. Remarkable. And Governor Whitmer has declared a state of emergency in several counties now as a result. But the one that I have reporting the most snow, apparently not on that list. Connor Lake Recreation Area. Near Connor Lake Recreation Area, the measurement was 52.8 inches of snow from the blizzard. 52.8 inches. It's in Alger County. Connor Lake Recreation Area is in Delta County. So the counties that are affected, Alcona, Alpena, Delta, Misaki, Ogama, Roscommon, and Wexford, right? Other snow totals, Traverse City picked up 19.8 inches. Boyne City, 24 inches. But 52.8 inches of snow from a single storm. Oh, Lord. Honey, I can't get to the store. I'm snowed in. Yeah, no kidding. Here's what the governor put out. I've declared a state of emergency in counties of the UP and northern Michigan to coordinate an all-hands-on-deck response to a historic blizzard. By taking this action, the state can respond to local requests faster, make every resource available to local communities to clear roads, deliver fuel, fix damage, keep the lights on. I want to thank all first responders who are working tirelessly to keep people safe. Good work on the governor. The storm dumped 2 to 4 feet or more. 52.8 is more. Through northern Michigan and the Upper Peninsula, ice accumulation caused widespread damage in places elsewhere, down power lines and trees. Areas around Cadillac impacted quite dramatically by the ice and the power outages. So that is something they're cleaning up today. The skiing is going to be great. You got that going for you. Great skiing, all right? So don't miss out on that. Or snowboarding, or snowshoeing, or snowmobiling. You just got an extension to your season of a while. We'll see how long that lasts. But I think that snow will be here until April for places that are even going to be warm. Another round of justice delivered as federal law enforcement cracks down on fraud and illegal activity in Michigan. According to U.S. Attorney for the Western District, Timothy Verhey, a 35-year-old Guatemalan in the U.S. illegally received an 8-month prison sentence for her role in a counterfeit ID document scheme. I thought these things didn't happen. Why would we need the Save America Act? Well, here's why. Norma Ayala, who's been deported from the U.S. 4 times, will serve time after pleading guilty to making fake Social Security cards and permanent resident cards and selling them to other illegal aliens. This is why we need the Save America Act. It's pretty crystal clear. Upon the completion of her sentence, Ayala will be deported to Guatemala, or at least we'd like to think so. At least we'd like to think so. This is, by the way, you can find this story, the complete story, at MichiganNewsSource.com, my news company. MichiganNewsSource.com. In 2024, Homeland Security investigations learned of the operation in the Grand Rapids area. So she's creating fake IDs in Grand Rapids, fake permanent resident cards in Grand Rapids. An investigation determined that Ayala and co-defendants, Rigoberto Vasquez and Indigo Vasquez Menco, advertised, manufactured, and sold fraudulent Social Security and permanent resident cards to other illegals. All three indicted September 2025. Verhey said, and I quote, "This case is an example of why the public has lost its tolerance for illegal immigration. Ms. Ayala has been removed from the United States 4 times, which shows her complete disregard for our laws." Verhey added, when Ayala came back for the 5th time, she celebrated her good fortune by starting a fraud ring to enrich herself and to allow others to invade our country and evade our immigration laws. This conduct is unacceptable, and my office will aggressively prosecute it whenever it occurs. Bill Heising, a congressman who represents a portion of West Michigan, also weighed in with this. He said, and I quote, "It is absurd that an individual who has been removed from the United States multiple times was able to illegally enter the country again only to engage in a criminal enterprise to create fake federal documents for other illegals." He also thanked President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans. They have restored border integrity and put an end to the open border policies of the Biden administration and its Democrat allies who remain in Congress and who, by the way, oppose the SAVE Act, which is being negotiated and discussed in the Senate right now. The Save America Act is clearly the most pivotal and most important piece of legislation before Congress today, and maybe for many years. Democrats will lie and say, oh, it's going to disenfranchise voters. No, it's not. The SAVE Act will not require me to go prove my citizenship again. It will not require me to do anything different. It will require going forward that people prove their citizenship and present photo ID when you vote. Everybody has voter ID. Everybody has it. If you don't, every state offers it for free. If you think $25 or $50 or whatever it might cost in whatever state you live in to get a driver's license or a government-issued ID is too expensive, it's okay. Every single state, all 50, provide you the opportunity to get a government-issued certified ID, real ID if you want, with a little star on it, so they can watch you where you go. You need it to fly on an airplane. You need it to go to Democrat congressional rallies. You need it to buy a beer. You need it to buy a lottery ticket. But they think you don't need it for the most consequential thing you will do as a citizen, and that is cast a ballot for who you want to represent you at the local level, the state level, or the federal level. Give me a break. The SAVE Act must be passed. The SAVE Act must be passed. And if it is not, I wonder, and I do, wonder what can be done by the president in an executive order to exact something along those lines. We simply cannot allow places like California to continue counting votes for weeks and months on end. Happens every election cycle. They'll have close races between a Republican and a Democrat, and somehow the Republican's always ahead on election day, but weeks or months later, the Democrats eke out a slim win. I've watched this for years. Call your members of Congress, call your senators, demand that the Save America Act get their support, or they'll not get yours. I'll be right back. All right, programming note that Anthony says I have to share with the good folks. No streaming Thursday or Friday of the program. We have a couple of technical things to tidy up, as it were. Speaking of tidying up, a lot of tidying up across Michigan. Did you hear 52.8 inches, Connor Lake Recreation Area? 52.8 inches out of this storm. Holy Lord. We're going to need a bigger shovel. Yeah. Ron Rademacher with me. He's got a big shovel. Ron, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. You know, that snow, it made me wonder, how come Greta and the gang never have one of those conferences in Marquette during February? You know, they can mow down 100 miles of rainforest and tell us how hot it is, but why don't they come on up here and,
Yeah.
Just curious.
Now, I don't know. Maybe you know. I thought that the UP was already having a record-type year for snowfall. You put 50 inches on top of that, man. It's one for the ages, isn't it?
It is, and they had to close the roads in Delta County, so we didn't have the snow tournament. You could not go to NAMA.
Right.
They closed the inn because no one could get there. Even the Ron Rademacher Memorial Snowmobile Trail was closed.
It's hard to do, snow golf when you're under a drift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to swing.
So you can't call that off.
Yeah. But I'll get good news. For people who love winter, who love to snowmobile or ski, your season just got extended.
It is terrific. The one, summer is coming. I'm going to have some road trips, by the way. I'm going to send over to Michigan News Source of some cabin fever relievers. But I just saw the video from the Pear Marquette River, and you're not going to be waiting right now, and they're going to say it might be shut off for a week or two because there's so much snow.
Yeah.
That when it really thaws, it's going to be a melt, and the rivers will be raging.
We can whitewater raft.
Yes. Yeah, Pine River rafting up. That is a great trip.
Yeah, I love that.
If they've cleared out the trees. But
the good news is for like Ironwood here, you've got the cross country snowmobile national championship. There were a couple of years ago, they had a lack of snow one winter, and so a lot of things didn't happen. That's not the problem this year, is it?
No, it's not the problem. And, they're having the Nordic ski race up in Copper Harbor, provided that you can get there.
Yeah, good luck.
If you want some winter, man, head to the UP. They've got all you want.
Yeah. Man, invite Greta.
Please invite Greta. Yeah. She's probably working on her March Madness. Have you got your layout done? Your brackets?
Oh yeah, it's all done. Just turned it in about 10 minutes ago. I turned it in.
All right, good. I'm sure Greta's working away on hers with her crayons, trying to get that done.
What else you got for me besides the fact that the whole northern Michigan is buried? Go on.
Well, the world tour continues, and I have an update on that. On the website, I haven't changed it yet. It says I'll be at the Linden Library on Monday doing the Oddities and Rarities program. It is not at the library. It's at the Luce Senior Center on Bridge Street. Apparently, we have a lot of Luce seniors in Linden out joining now.
Say that again.
It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Wait, let me clear my ear. What?
So we got that going on. And this weekend, the Easter Bunny's going to be in Frankenmuth.
Under a drift.
And they're having Easter at the Wildlife Park in Howell. So the Easter Bunny, he's digging his way out. He's going to make it. And
I think I'm going to make it. We gave up alcohol around here for Lent. I think I'm going to make it till the 2nd of April. Not that I'm counting the days or anything.
No. So you won't be in Grand Rapids for the Whiskey Festival this weekend.
Sir, I won't. I mean, I could go, but it would be, awfully heartbreaking because, I have not broken form, so we're good. I've done this.
Good for you.
I've done it before. I don't do it every year because it is a challenge. Just to know why, know anything.
You'll watch the waistline shrink when you cut those calories out.
Yeah.
It's quick. We got all that going on. The home show is in Davisburg at the Oakland County Fairgrounds, and that's pretty much the size of it. Other than the Outdoor Fishing Center in Detroit, they're thinking positive. They're having their fishing pole set up event.
So
they think the snow is going to melt.
So speaking of fishing, and your world tour continues, I'll get that in a moment. But yeah. So I was talking to a guy, just met him, nice guy, he's a builder, And he was talking about the Red Cedar River, which the Red Cedar to me has always been kind of a muddy river. It's not a good fishing river. He showed me a spot that can't be but 15 minutes from my house where the Red Cedar cuts through that's loaded with pike from 30 to 40 inches. I mean, 40-inch, legit 40-inch northern pike. I'm like, come on. He goes, it is the easiest fishing for big pike you will ever see in your life. He said they bite everything. They bite each other.
Can you send me the coordinates on that? That's my favorite fish.
Heck, you can. I'll bring you along for the adventure.
Absolutely. Let me know. I've always got my northern pike pole stays rigged.
You know, what I was trying to figure out was how you fly.
No bones.
The problem with the Red Cedar, true of some of the smaller rivers in Michigan, I'd like to fly fish it, but there's so much debris and overhang and this and that. Very hard to.
Yeah,
but you can chuck in some spinners or you know.
Yeah, you can throw your MEPS in there, and it's hard to fly fish
Daredevils,
the Looking Glass and the Grand River because there's just you're in the forest. So
exactly, and it's all.
That sounds like a great trip. I'd love that.
Yeah, well, as soon as winter's over, you know, and here's the problem, Ron. You see, I insulted the drunk rat. There's where I made my mistake. I insulted because we had, you know, the drunk rat came out all elixiered up and said 6 more weeks of winter, and we instantly went into that, you know, spring weather, and I'm like, well, the rat was wrong.
Yeah.
He wasn't wrong.
And he said, I got a little something for Gruber. That's what he said.
Yeah, he wasn't
and now
wrong.
we're all paying the price, so.
All right, so the World Tour continues at the Linden Library, Oddities and Rarities. Bob the Turtle will be there with Ron on the 23rd of March.
Yeah,
Right.
Bob will be there with the kids' books. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time.
All right, there you have it. MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com. If you have a place, an event, something you'd like to share with the great Ron Rademacher, that's the place to do it, MichiganBackroads.com. Good-looking human being, that Ron Rademacher. Thank you, Ron.
There you go. Now we're talking. What do you want now, Steve?
You know, just your love.
I know you're after something.
Yeah, just your love. Thank you, Ron. Greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. Oh, Lord. So here's, Anthony, are you going to fill out a bracket? Do you do that?
No.
No. So my daughter works at a big shop, right, or a big place. I said, are they doing brackets? I said, well, I want in. She said that you can get in, no problem, but there's no money. Well, if there's no money, well, you know, look, I want a shot at losing my money legitimately, you know.
We used to do brackets around here, but I guess not.
I got one for you.
Oh, all right.
You can do it. You can be demand. Anyhow.
Did you see, what is it, Kalshi, some betting app or something?
Yeah.
$1 billion if you get a perfect bracket.
$1 billion.
$1 million.
Oh, $1 million.
Well, $1 billion for a perfect bracket. $1 million if it's not perfect, but it's the best one. The closest.
Really? So this Kalshi thing, I see them all the time. How do they make money?
People losing bets.
Really? So you can go on there and actually bet
on their site? There. I think that one you can bet on pretty much anything. Like people bet on politics and the weather.
Well, I know. Because Kalshi is one of the ones that says, you know, who's going to win an election, and you know, and it changes as you get closer to election day. I watch that stuff. Our good friend Tim Young and his podcast is sponsored by Kalshi, so I'm familiar with him. But I always wonder, $1 billion, how are you ever going to pay that? Of course, there's never going to be a perfect bracket, but how would you pay it if there were?
Like this app?
Yeah. I mean, how are you going to come up with $1 billion? Kalshi's not worth $1 billion, are they?
I'm sure they are. They're probably the biggest betting platform.
Really?
They take people's money. They probably take millions
They
from
just
people
take people's
every day.
money. They just take it. They'll bet on any. You know, I've said this for a long time. Vegas will bet on anything, and so will a lot of people. I told people I was watching the pig races on TV up north a couple of years ago. Very, very entertaining. But I'm looking at these little pigs, you know, running around a maze, heading for the food trough. That was their prize at the end. And they had leagues, and they had championships, and they had merchandise. I mean, really. I'm like, people will bet on any damn thing. Anyhow.
Yeah, that company's worth $11 billion.
You just looked it up. 11 billion.
I think they partnered with somebody to do the $1 billion giveaway.
Probably got an insurance policy of some sort. Anyhow, thanks, Anthony. I'll take a break and be back after this. All right, there's been a lot of conversations in this country about how we enforce our immigration laws, right? And how we turn our cities, our once great cities, back into great cities. I mean, we've seen a reduction in crime across this country. Biggest drop in crime, I think, in American history happened in 2025. That happens when you start closing your border and doing good things. Well, in some places like Minneapolis, it didn't go well. But what about New Orleans? Michael Echols is a state representative in northern Louisiana, District 14, in Louisiana House of Representatives, serves as chair of the House Republican delegation. He joins me now. Sir, thank you.
Steve, honored to be with you today.
So let's talk about New Orleans and the president's tough on crime agenda, bringing in the National Guard, coordinating with local, state, and federal officials to clean things up. It's worked in New Orleans, hasn't it?
It has. Violent crime down 40% in New Orleans, plus numerous other categories of crime are down, and that's over, several years now. But Governor Jeff Landry, coupled with some local leaders and federal resources, have put the pressure on the criminal enterprise, and we've seen some really good results.
Yeah, I like the governor. I've had the chance to talk to him and meet with him a few times. He seems to be pretty straightforward on these sorts of things. And look, why can the rest of the country not look at New Orleans? Similar results in Memphis, Tennessee, when the same sort of thing was rolled out there. And yet in these big blue cities, they fight tooth and nail for sanctuary city status, to put criminals. You look at New York City where people are being beaten on the subway platform, and the person doing the beating is then released right back out into the city a few hours later. It's unconscionable, isn't it?
It's a crime what we've done to our population by chasing these crazy theories. And, here in Louisiana, we've actually started targeting repeat offenders with real consequences. I think that's why you're starting to see results in places like Louisiana that are red states. But in the blue states, they just want to test all these crazy left-wing theories that don't end up doing anything but hurting the law-abiding citizens of America.
What they seem to like, Michael, is they seem to like, hey, send us more money. Pour in more money. We need more money for this and this and this. And the fact of the matter is, dumping all that money in just makes the state or the city poorer. It provides less services that are really necessary. I mean, you look at Minneapolis, easy example. They're down something like 500 police officers, because who would want to be a police officer in the city of Minneapolis today? They get treated with no respect. They're spit on, sworn at, pushed. And if they do their job, and God forbid something bad happens like a shooting, a police-involved shooting, they go after the police officer more often than not. That doesn't happen in New Orleans anymore, does it?
It does not. It's gotten so much better. Now, we're still short police officers in New Orleans, and I know that's trying to be rebuilt now. You still have, the left still control large parts of New Orleans by way of leadership. However, this governor, the state legislature, working with national ATC, FBI, and major crime enforcement divisions, have been able to target and work around those left-leaning cities. And I think that's why you're seeing these wins. I think these should be an example, as you mentioned, Memphis, Tennessee, of course, New Orleans, and others. These are examples with targeted resources. You can have a meaningful impact in crime. And it goes back to just that average day Joe, the person that's out there working, just want to do the right things for their kids and family. And they're the ones that are being targeted. They're the ones that are suffering the abuses of these heinous repeat offenders. If we don't start taking these guys seriously that are out there committing 10, 20, 30 crimes, there's no good in these people after they commit their 30th crime. You're not going to reform them. You just got to lock them up. It's unfortunate, but that's a societal problem that we have to look at addressing longer term. That's through other strategies. It's not through letting them out of jail.
Yeah, here's another problem. I just talked about this a short while ago. An Obama-appointed judge just ordered the release of an MS-13 gang member who has been convicted of rape and robbery, has come into the country at least 5 times illegally and been thrown out, and has been ordered released. Activist judges, why don't we just have the MS-13 gang member move in with them? Maybe that would help.
It's probably a good, home confinement strategy we could work on, that it's mandatory they get to stay with the judge for a few days just so they can, talk and work through their issues together.
Yeah.
I think that would have a meaningful impact. But, the average constituent does have to live with that heinous criminal out there, murder, raping, and hurting their friends and family members. Louisiana's got some bills on the books we're working on now to tackle some of these judges, these lunatic judges that are out just putting criminals back on the street en masse. I think we have to look at this nationally. It's a much broader issue. Now, you have to be careful because you got the Constitution and, the separation of powers and all these things. But at the same time, constituents deserve better. And I think we're going to work on some things here in Louisiana to be a leader in that space.
Well, Louisiana, I'm going to shift gears here, off topic for a moment, sir. But Louisiana could set the tone for elections going forward because of this case in front of the Supreme Court when it comes to redistricting. If Louisiana wins this case, which could be, dropped at any time, probably not till June, it would mean that redistricting based on race would be officially and forever outlawed, which it should be. It would give the state of Louisiana about 3 more Republican seats in Congress. It would mean states like Alabama, Mississippi, and others would also get additional Republican seats. And it would also freeze California and Virginia where they are because they explicitly used race in their redistricting efforts thus far. I think that Louisiana is the epicenter of setting the country on the right course. It would add a dozen or more Republican seats to Congress because you can't do a district based on race. How important is that case? I know you guys have been following it.
Look, it's probably the most important decision for the fabric of America since maybe Roe versus Wade or even other bigger cases that are out there. But when you look at this particular issue, we went through redistricting twice, tried to redistrict fairly. A liberal leftist judge said, you guys have to racially gerrymander or else I'm going to take the maps and make them even worse for Louisianians. And so by having this case out there, it sets a precedent, I think, for the rest of America. And to move America back in the right direction, you shouldn't have to pick somebody based on this racial gerrymandering strategy. It is absolutely crazy that we're dealing with this, but I would agree that, it would set the country back on the right foot, give states the ability to do it freely and fairly, and let people elect whoever they want. The left narrates that this is something chaotic, but I think it's a reasonable strategy, and hopefully the judges rule between now and June and we can get this thing moving.
Well, those are the same Democrats that say, providing voter ID is somehow going to marginalize people that are black or Hispanic, married women. They'll just not be able to figure out how to vote if you have the SAFE Act. I mean, it's the most insulting line of narrative I've ever heard. I'll give you the last word here, sir.
Yeah, no, Louisiana's on the right track. We're trying to lead the charge on restructuring our state. Governor Landry, a very conservative state House and state Senate are working to make our state better. We've got over $100 billion in economic development announcements because of this strategy and shift. You talked about crime earlier, and it's been a problem in Louisiana for years, but we're finally tackling it with real resources and real strategies, holding violent criminals accountable, put them in jail, keep them in jail, and keeping our average citizens safe. Louisiana's on the right track. We got a lot of work to do, and we're still working hard with the governor, but I think the future is very bright.
Michael Eccles, really appreciate you being here. The proof is there. Look at the numbers. Crime down 40% over the last few years and getting better because of good policies replacing bad. Michael, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, my friend. All right. After the break, the man that's likely going to be the next governor of Florida, Byron Donalds, currently a member of Congress, an outspoken defender of the President of the United States, a conservative out there. Well, he just speaks truth. He's coming up after the break. Some of the very best entertainment I get on a regular basis is watching my next guest absolutely destroy legacy media mouthpieces when they try to say this or that, and he just sets them straight with the facts. I have liked this guy since I first heard him speak when he became a member of Congress. Byron Donalds, now running for governor in Florida. He's the leading candidate and has a significant lead over all Democrats that could possibly come up against him. Congressman Donalds, nice to have you back on the program.
It's good to be back with you. How are you?
I'm well, sir. Always good to talk to you. A lot of important things going on, so I want to jump right into it. The Save America Act on the floor of the Senate, Democrats would have you believe that somehow black voters and Hispanic voters and women that get married are just not smart enough to figure out how to get a picture ID. Now, in Michigan, where I live, we have to use a driver's license, voter ID. It's been that way for years. Other states seem to figure it out. Every country in Europe figures it out. It's being debated on the floor of the Senate. To you, how important is the Save America Act that we get it done?
I think it's critical. It's mission critical for the future of the country. Let's be very clear. The Democrats they're not crazy. They're diabolical. And they're diabolical because even their own voters want this to happen. And they refuse because they know, like we know, that if there are real controls and protections in American elections, they lose seats. It makes it harder for them to win seats here in Congress, makes it harder for them to win governor's mansions in some of these tight states, like a Michigan, like a Wisconsin. It makes it tougher for them to win state legislative seats, which are, you're at state level, you need those people in the assembly or in the state legislature, depending on the state and how they phrase it, in order to push policy. And they know that if you have voter ID, it makes it harder for them to win these elections. And that's what this is about. They don't care about protecting the ballot box. And they're so nuts, and they're so committed to political power above all else, that they will use any tool, whether it's racism, sexism, using the past of America, Jim Crow laws, poll taxes, etc., and they will use that language in order to create the emotional situation in the United States where they get some semblance of support. But this is even crazy. Their own voters, black people, Hispanic voters, white voters, everybody's like, yeah, voter ID, this makes sense.
Yeah, everybody's on board with it.
And
right? It's an 80-20 issue.
Everybody's
the
on
only
board,
people opposed are the people that are Democrats on Capitol Hill. That's the only group of people in America that are opposed to this.
Yes. Well, let me expand it. It's Democrats on Capitol Hill. It's Democrats in state legislative bodies all across the country. They're opposed to it. It's Democrats who are elected on the local level. They're opposed to it. But your rank and file American who registers as a Democrat and votes as a Democrat, and you're an American, you're entitled to do whatever you want to do. That's your right in this country. People who are just going to work, going home, raising their kids every single day, they're like, this is the easiest thing ever. Why is this hard?
Yeah.
And it's because of political power. That's why they are diabolical. This is one of the reasons the Democrats should never be trusted with political power in the United States again.
Something else that's not hard, Congressman, is funding DHS. We had a number of terrorist attacks, including right here in Michigan last week at a synagogue, where a guy whose brother was a Hezbollah leader in Lebanon attacked the synagogue with 140 people inside, including 100 kids. And yet Democrats want to play political games with funding CISA, the Coast Guard, TSA, all of it. It's embarrassing for them. And the American people aren't buying that either, I don't believe. So DHS should be funded, but they refuse to do it. What are your thoughts?
Again, I think they're crazy. They're doing this because they think this is going to give them political advantage this November. Here's what the Democrats know. When they tried to play with a shutdown last year and they walked away and got nothing for leaving the government shut down for 40 days, absolutely nothing, and it made no sense. Everybody in America was like, basically, thank goodness this is over because that was stupid, except for their radical fringe base. And the radical fringe base was upset with them, and they felt that they should have went further. Chuck Schumer, they almost removed him from leadership because he basically just cut a deal with the president to keep the government open earlier last year. And so where they are right now is that they're trying to keep their base motivated to win these elections. And so that's why DHS continues to be shut down, and they don't even bat an eye. And what's crazy is now you have people who are having to experience the long lines at airports all across the country. I heard Van Jones say this on CNN the other day about how, yeah, they should hold the line, but this is getting really frustrating for people because the lines are incredibly long at these airports. People are missing flights because of this. It's creating issues in our economy. They don't care.
Yeah,
they
don't
care. Their whole mission is opposing Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's leverage to them, they think, but it's a fool's errand. Even in California, the lines are getting massively long and people are getting angry. Let me shift real quick. Got about a minute here. Looking at the polls here just before you came on, you are leading to be the next governor of Florida. Any Democrat you come up against loses by maybe double digits. You're in a really good position to become the next governor of Florida. Tell me about that.
Well, we're really excited. First and foremost, Governor DeSantis has done a great job leading our state. In Florida, we have term limits, so we have to elect a new governor. We're really excited to have the endorsement and full support of President Trump and so many of my Republican colleagues throughout the state of Florida. But more important than that, we've been crisscrossing the state. The reception by the people of Florida has really been amazing. And we're talking about a couple of key things. Number one, we are going to keep the foundations that has made Florida the best state in America. We're going to stay the free state of Florida, stay the leader in the conservative movement in the United States. Number two, we're also going to prepare for the future of Florida. We're the hottest state in the union. We've been running hot for 30 years now, definitely the last 6 to 7 years. But you got to prepare for the future. We're going to be preparing for the future, dealing with key issues around affordability, property taxes, insurance. The property tax piece, I hope the governor and the legislature get that done this year. We'll see what they come up with. But we're going to be focused on affordability and then also building out the future of our economy, making sure our young people are getting a world-class education. And I think also in this last piece, and I'll stop here, Steve, we want to end this craziness that forces kids just to go to college. I'm a college graduate, Florida State, finance and marketing. Look, not every child is going to college, and not every child should. They need to get a world-class education, vocational training, going back into the trades, apprenticeships, putting young people on a pathway to real success in the United States, whether that's into the trades, into college, or university.
You can find out more at ByronDonalds.com. I like smart people. That's why I like Byron Donalds. Find out more, ByronDonalds.com. Sir, thank you. Did you know that America Well, I really do like Byron Donalds a lot, in fact. He first ran for Congress in 2012 and did not come out on top. He returned in 2016. And from the first time I heard that guy talk, I'm like, that guy is sharp. Finance major, understands money. Grew up with a single mom in New York City, understands those challenges and why the American family is so important to the nucleus of this country. Saw him at the State of the Union address most recently, and he is just a terrific guy. Florida would be lucky, I'm telling you, to have this guy as their next governor. He won with 67% of the vote in the last election for Congress, right? And I just think that he is remarkable. So he's the kind of guy that could be very lucky to have, as far as I'm concerned. He went to Florida State and learned all about finance and was working at Wells Fargo. So that sets him apart right there from, so many members of Congress. So much financial illiteracy in this country, much of it in Congress, unfortunately. These people don't understand money. They don't understand debt. They don't understand the Fed. They don't understand any of this stuff. Anyhow. But he had a real life. He was charged with marijuana possession in 1997. Got a diversion program. But no contest for felony theft charge for allegedly attempting to pass a bad check once. Anyhow, he's had it all cleaned up. Got his life on the right track. Married Erica, has a great family, and he will be the next governor of Florida. Bank on it. Fight the good fight and keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, my friends, only you can save America.